More buyouts continue on the reserve list, and most of them are caused by what's going on in Dominaria United. Hi everyone and welcome back. MTG Moxman here, and boy, we got a lot to cover on the video today. It is the Sunday edition of the Hot 10. This is the reserve list edition, and the sales are coming like an avalanche on some of these cards, and it's all due to the sales of Dominaria United. As players get hold of some of these cards, they're starting to construct janky, fun commander decks, which are boosting sales on the reserve list. And it's something to pay attention to because you never are really sure when the reserve list sales turn around, go into overdrive, and that's when players have like regret and they miss out on sales and cheap prices and they start grumbling and groaning about getting rid of the reserve list. Oh, we shouldn't have it. The cards are too expensive. But really, if you'd been buying these cards when they were $1 or $2, really, you wouldn't be complaining right now. You're just reminiscing about how the prices used to be. And we'll be covering some of that in today's video. So remember, we go down this yellow brick road together, hand in hand, Dorothy and Toto. We got the Tin Man somewhere back there. Flying monkeys are under the attack. And somewhere a witch is going to have a house dropped on her. What can you say? We'll start at number 10. We will end at number 1. And we'll find out what the hottest selling card was this week. Let's get on our way to the Wizard of Oz. Alright everyone, we're starting out with Fork this week with 20 sales, August 27th to the 2nd. Now, here locally, this card is $65 Canadian to find a near mint copy. You can see there the average price and the market price, $48, $49 US, pretty close, €28, 28 cents to get this card. But don't forget what Fork does for you. And don't forget cards that come before it or come after it. There are lots of different versions. They usually fall into red or blue still, but it's that copying spell ability that makes this so deadly of a card to have around. You can find this thing on TCG Player for like $20 still for like a heavily played copy. A very inexpensive way to get into a reserve list card. But not only that, when it starts copying spells, and depending on the spell you are choosing to copy, this thing can just rock people's worlds. I myself am trying to build some kind of doubling spell with all kinds of time walking spells with red and blue for a commander deck. You know, with Ral Zarek, and I'll put Teferi in there. I'll have a little bit of craziness going on. See if I can really make it jam, make it work together. But a card like Fork has to go in there because with other cards that we have that copy spells or allow copies of spell like Jin Taxis, the Progress Tyrant and stuff, there's a lot of fun that can come your way with playing cards like this. A lot of players just don't see it when they look at the reserve list, but you have to look at some individual cards and see where that action's going to be found and how you can have a good time playing with them. Now our next card is Savannah, revised edition, 24 sales this week. A little surprising to still see so many of the revised dual lands selling at such strong numbers. Again, this is the only dual land on the list this week, I'll be honest with you guys, but a lot of the cards were at the $15 to $16 sales in the week, so they didn't quite make it. They weren't high enough. Other cards, started bumping them off as I started tallying them together, but these are still pretty affordable. And when you start looking at how much a Double Masters product costs, Double Masters 2022, Modern Horizons 2, this looks like a very affordable card on the reserve list that's never coming back. It doesn't matter how much people grump and groan that the reserve list is going to disappear. It's not really going anywhere. Nothing bad is going to happen to it. At least not that I can see in the foreseeable future, or I wouldn't still be buying them myself. It's a revised dual land. Of course we're going to be buying them. I have more commander decks to build, and so do you. Alright, the number 8 card this week is Keljoran Outpost. 27 sales this week. This price has really been falling for quite a while now. I waited to see how it would settle out, but that continued drop means I had to mention it in a few of the card to watch videos. And when I do the card watch videos for Thursday on the reserve list side, and I do the Friday regular edition card watch, this was on those. And yes, the sales picked up. When you can get this card for like $7, $8 on TCG Player, people are going to take notice, right? Locally, I think it was still like $15, $16. Here in Canada, I didn't put the sale up because I couldn't find any for sale locally, but if I find one, I will let you guys know and see what they're going for. Don't forget what this card does. When it comes into play, you got to sacrifice a plains or bury it, but you could tap it for mana. This one doesn't say it has to be untapped. So you could tap it for mana right away, then put this in. It adds 1 to your mana pool, but you can pay 1 white and 1 other to put a soldier token into play. That's right, soldiers. Remember, We have a whole thing going on with Dominaria United with soldiers making a return, and people are taking advantage of some of these cheap reserve list cards to augment really strange, janky soldier decks to have a good time, put it in a cube, have that kind of feel for what Dominaria is really like. This is an amazing card though. It's really underrated for what it can do for you, and with cards like Lodestone Bauble, Renin 6, that new Sarah Paragon. There's so many ways of getting lands back nowadays that it's crazy to think about. So an amazing card. I can see why it's here, and it's still way underpriced considering it's been like 40, 50 bucks before. Now, the number 7 card was actually a bit of a surprise this week. I didn't expect to see Undiscovered Paradise on the list this week. But you know what? When you start looking at what the land does, you're like, yeah, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. At the beginning of your next untap step, return it to your hand. I get it. I get it. You're going to return it, play it again, do what you want, sack it, do something crazy. Lots of ways of bringing that card back, but it still had 33 sales. The card's only $15.50 US. Again, no copies in Canada that I could find locally, so I just left it blank right now. I know some of you guys were asking about me putting back up Canadian pricing. I'm trying to find them and mark them down whenever I can, guys, and do that extra little bit of legwork for you. I will be adding them in whenever I find them, okay? But this card, it really is a decent card. It's been as high as that like $25, $30 level. It probably should be a $100 card at some point. Keep an eye out for that. If it's a card you don't own, get your playset out of the way. I don't know why this card is so cheap, but it is. Now, number 6. This threw me for a loop. 34 sales this week, August 27th to the 2nd. This is Lord of Tresserhorn, sorry, from Alliances. This card has been up around that $20 level, okay? $6.98. Locally, again, couldn't find any copies, but take a closer look at the Lord of Tresserhorn here, and you realize how amazing this card is. He didn't go in my Throwbold deck because he has blue in him, and I'm only playing a red-black right now. But if you do a red-black-blue, why would you not add this monster into your deck? He is a 4 casting cost 10-4. Are you telling me you can't find a way to give it trample with all the color combinations we have nowadays? You see what I'm saying? You look at this. Now, when he comes into play, you got to pay 2 life and sacrifice 2 creatures. Think about all the pests, all the tokens. Sept makes those 2 thralls every turn. It is so easy to get this guy onto the battlefield nowadays that it's just nuts if you don't have him, if you're playing these colors. Now, again, when you're looking at him, you know, your target opponent gets to draw 2 cards, but you'll get to pick the opponent when you're playing Commander. You may have an ally out there, and effects that prevent or redirect that loss of life can't be prevented. That's great, but he also regenerates, okay? Not only is he a really cool 10-4 guy, 10-4 good buddy, but he regenerates. He can't really be killed as easily as so many other cards out there. Lord Tresserhorn's amazing. You make that guy your Commander, and you might have something going there depending on how you're doing your creature generation inside your deck. I can see why he is an amazing card to have around. I don't know why he's so cheap, but hey, somebody else's forgetfulness is your gain. That's how it plays out there on the reserve list. But cards like this coming around, and this guy all of a sudden making onto the list this week, tells me somebody else out there is paying attention to reserve list cards, and they're grabbing them while they're this cheap. Now, number 5 this week is Bolduvian Trading Post, and this is from Alliances as well. The 38 sales, this card used to sell quite a bit. I do like this card. It does see Commander play. When you look at this card and realize it does have, oh, sorry, I clicked it a little bit too soon. It does have something going for it. When it comes into play, you got to sacrifice an untapped mountain. See a little bit of a difference there. Untap mountain or bury the trading post. But it taps to add 2 to your mana pool. So they made this one untap so you don't like sack it and get 3 mana. Now, it still taps for 2 though, which is pretty amazing. But you can pay 1 generic and tap the trading post, and it deals 1 damage to target attacking creature. This thing is a pest when you're dealing in a Commander game, because you could have this, somebody else is being attacked, and you decide to pick that creature off because you think it might be a pest you have to deal with later. This thing has uses, it has versatility, and you can find this thing on TCG Player for like $1.50, okay? Really cheap price. I think $2.50 for like a moderately played, heavily played for like $1.50. Don't tell me you can't afford this card, guys. Everyone can afford it, and the price has come down so hard from that $25 level that it's hard not to take advantage of people who just don't care about the card. It's awesome. Now, number 4, another surprise kind of jump back on there. 41 sales this week, and that is the Conch Horn from Fallen Empires. This card's been on the list lots of times. We know it well. I know it plays well. It can play in every Commander deck. A lot of players like to play it in Vintage and Legacy sometimes when they can't get the expensive cards they want to have. A 2 casting cost generic that acts as your brainstorm. You pay 1, you tap it, you sacrifice it, draw 2 cards, then put any 1 card from your hand back on top of your library. So you can keep the 2 cards you draw, put 1 back. This card, I can see why people like it. And it's really fallen in price, but it didn't fall back to those previous lows where it was like $1 card. It hasn't ever gone back to that level. And it seems to be settling around the $5 mark. $6 here in Canada for a near mint copy of this card. So keep that in mind. Look for the near mint ones. This card does tend to bounce up whenever we have reserve list buyouts, okay? Now, the number 3 card this week, Elvish Farmer is back on here too, with 46 sales this week. Now, for those who don't know this card, it is an elf, which means it can play in all kinds of elf decks. It's 1 green, 1 generic. It's a 0/2, but it says during your upkeep, put a spore counter on the Elvish Farmer. Remove 3 spore counters from the Elvish Farmer and put a token into play. Treat it as a 1/1 green creature. Okay, so you get this little Sporling token that's a 1/1 green creature. And you can sacrifice that Sporling to gain 2 life. So you can block and sack it. You can build up a small, really slow army though, because it takes like 3 turns to get one. But there are ways of ramping up to make more counters go on creatures like this. And whenever you're building with an elf deck, cards like this tend to come up. It's super cheap still. This card's $6 US. It's around $8 here in Canada. There were no copies in stock, but the stores told me they would be selling it for $8 when they get it back in. I saw it on a few wish lists, so people are still looking for this card even locally here in Toronto. Now, let's check out number 2 this week down the Yellow Brick Road, and that is Ertai, the Wizard Adept, and I'm not surprised. 67 sales this week, August 27th to the 2nd. It had a buyout happening on TCG Player when I was looking this card up. Now, $17.10 light played, and I expected this card to sell. It's a little bit cheaper here than it is in the US, which is surprising. Some of the stores haven't caught on. If you're looking to buy this card, the 1710 light played is at 401 Games. It was the cheapest I could find it at for a lightly played copy, which is pretty much near mint from them. Very good deal. But when you take a look at Ertai, we talked about him the other day in the reserve list cards to watch because he came back in Dominaria United. He got a second round. He's been printed before, different versions of the card. But this one is by far the best one. It is a 3 casting cost 1/1. But on the next turn you can lay a land. You're going to have the 4 mana to start casting spells. He does count as a wizard, so all kinds of wizard effects and wizard doubling up bonuses will count for him as well. Counter and target spell, play it as an interrupt, which means play as an instant. The ability to counter spells forever. Not have to worry about cancel this or force of will that. You can just pay the mana and counter it. Yes, it ties up mana. I understand that, guys. It can be a little slow. But getting this guy out at the right time and having the mana and holding it as a loaded weapon to stop people from casting things is amazing. It makes people deal with him and not have to deal with you in your commander games. Or even Vintage and Legacy if you want to play like a janky fun game. Love this card. I understand why and it's been as high as like $50-$60. People bought it at that level. I remember talking about this early 2021 during the spike of buyouts. But look how far it's fallen. What an amazing deal. But somebody's buying it right now. So keep an eye on that stuff, guys. FOMO sets in. Now, the number 1 card this week. I have talked about it. And again, it comes from the fact that we have crazy stuff happening in Dominaria United, right? That people get janky and they say, you know what? I want General Jarkul. I want him, man. He's from Ice Age. He was like $1 or less a card on TCG Player. And people went out and they bought this card. 145 sales. The 27th to the 1st, okay? Now, when you take a look at him, closer look. 1 white, 3 generic, which happens for a lot of these older cards. They don't usually have the heavy mana cost of 2 white. A lot of these kind of soldier guys are 1 white. And by the way, he counts as a soldier. And it says switch the blocking creatures of 2 target attacking creatures. All defenses must remain legal. Use this ability only during combat after defense is chosen, but before damage is dealt. It didn't say your creatures. Remember that. It didn't say yours. You can make friends and enemies. It's a brand new board game. Let's make friends and enemies in Commander. Let's start switching people's attacking and blocking creatures. Again, just like Ertai, he's got to be dealt with. And with a creature army being built up, cards like this can be totally phenomenal and fun to play with. And that's what it's all about sometimes. Playing the game and enjoying what you do. People who are constructing these soldier decks, building these fun Griffin decks because of cards that come out in Dominaria United, I don't think they're trying to win any contests and make all of a sudden soldiers be the number 1 commander deck out there. They're trying to play. They're trying to have fun and enjoy the game. But these sales are a direct result of what happens when Wizards of the Coast prints a set like this. When they bring out Dominaria, bring out worlds we've been to, this is the way it goes. This is what happens, and it's amazing. Because it makes people remember the reserve list, focus on cards and go, oh yeah, banding, what's that again? What's happened with banding? You stopped all my creatures. None of your stuff died and I lost everything. It's hilarious. Trust me, I've done it. Guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks for following me down the yellow brick road today. We've arrived at the Emerald City, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the live stream at night, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. You guys have a great day today. I'll see you guys soon. And this part of the video is reserved for all the fantastic, special, amazing patrons that support me each and every day. Patrons make the world go round. You guys know you're important. You're the patrons. Here we are at the end of the video. I felt like opening a pack today. It's been a while. I get that itch. Gotta open a pack. I'm gonna jump through some of these. Seer's Lantern. We'll get to the uncommons. Hey, Command Tower. I need one of those. That's good. All right, we got a skilled animator. See my skilled animator? We're following that up with Hunter's Insight. Because, you know, I'm a hunter. I got some good insight. Oh, the Meteor Golem. Do you know how many times I use this thing on, what was that out of, on Arena? You know, blow things up, recycle it. It was pretty crazy. Then we've got, hey, Jeskai's Will. I think that's worth some money. Jeskai's Will is good. That's a good card. Then we got Acrium the Dead Tide. Then I got Bella the Corrupted Observer. That's a zombie elf. That's kind of creepy. And then I got a Crushing Vines. I know that's not the glorious, but I think the Jeskai Will is pretty good. I think I'll put that over here somewhere. You know, the air cards are just gonna, you know, be some fun and small cards because, you know, you miss them. Commander Legends. This is going to be worth money. People forget how many great cards are inside this set. Just saying. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for being the special people. And if you made it this far, guess what? In the comment section, we'll put Jeskai's Will.